Hi, it's Dennis Daly. Back in the spring of 1997, I was invited to take my radio show to a little chocolate company. It was on Telegraph Avenue in Oakland, California, in a building that it purchased in the 50s but looked as if it had been designed by Walt Disney. It was great fun going to that chocolate company on St. Valentine's Day.
This week we are visiting the Hooper Chocolate Company. There's a lot of people here buying some great treats. We are the guest of Jack Doty, who is in charge here. But before coming to Hooper's, he was very, very much involved in potato chips at the Granny Goose Company. That's a whole different kind of merchandising. Jack and I have been talking about that, and I pointed out to him that there is such a plethora now of different kinds of potato chips, and we're getting into Tex-Mex and nachos and things like that, which are almost cousins to the potato chip.
And are actually produced by the potato chip factories many times. You have your potato-based and you have your corn-based products. So you have your nacho chips, which are tortilla chip-based, sometimes seasoned, sometimes not. And that's the sector that has been growing. Potato chips have been relatively stable since the 60s, but the growth has been coming in on the tortilla chip side.
Well, let's move to the matter at hand. You're there at Granny Goose, and then tell us what happened. Tell us how you moved over to this very venerable name of Hooper's Chocolates, although not known across the country, mostly here in the Bay Area. You're changing that. But tell us how you made the transition and how the company was revitalized.
I came in as a part of the turnaround team at Granny Goose and was there 2 years. At which time the company was stable and it had returned to profitability, and it was time to move on. The chairman, Keith Kim, who was still there, was well in charge, and he wanted to move to a different type of operation, more of a stable rather than a turnaround. And so we were in a good position, then several of us who had been a part of his team, to move on and look for a different company. We looked at several companies, and Hooper's was then available. So we saw that Hooper's, because it was back in the control of the Hooper family, was able to be bought, and so it was an exciting opportunity, Dennis, that we then pursued.
Jack, in the theater, when they aren't doing performances, they say the theater is dark. Is that what happened at Hooper? Was there a time before the revitalization when you just could not get the product?
Indeed. The story is, it's a tragic story so often in American business that succession problems develop. Gordon and Barbara Hooper operated the company themselves well into their 90s. And when first Gordon passed on and then Barbara passed on, there was not somebody who was readily available to take over. And that is referred to as a succession problem. And in fact, where we felt our place in the marketplace is to turn around. Companies have gone through succession problems. The company was then sold to some younger folks who just didn't quite run the company well, and finally had a union problem that ended up in a corporate bankruptcy. She was dark for 2 years. During that period, possession returned back to a daughter of Gordon, Robin Hooper Phillips, and she was then able to sell the company. One of our number would come down across the street here to the hot dog stand and kept an eye on it, and he realized that the lawn was being cut, therefore it was back under the control of the Hooper family, who were very proud of the building. He then contacted him, and we then bought the company.
I was going to ask about it. It's called Casper's across the street. It strikes me, with a K, it strikes me as being the quintessential mom-and-pop neighborhood hot dog stand.
And has been since the 20s. And this is the fourth generation who's operated, all of whom just passed it down, one father to son. And there indeed is the great-grandson of the original founder over there selling hot dogs to this very day.
Well, now, if you look at the outside of the Hooper's building here, it's a wonderful, almost Disney-esque kind of building. It strikes me that Mr. Hooper must have been quite a character, if for no other reason than he was really totally immersed in the product.
Both are true. However, it wasn't Gordon Hooper who designed the building. That was the Margaret Burnham Camden Company, which was founded in the 30s, in 1931, actually, and built it here. They bought it in 1951. But the Disney aspect of it, which I think you're seeing is the pink with the white trim and the white pure white.
I expect to see Snow White walk through the parking lot.
In fact, I think they had that in mind. But the pink came from Barbara Hooper, whose favorite color was pink, and the boxes were pink, and the offices here are being painted out were pink, and along that line, yeah. We'll keep the pink look of the building, however.
Jack, we're doing this show, my listeners know it's live on tape. I'm actually here on St. Valentine's Day, but we're hearing the show slightly down the weeks from there. Chocolate is, to me, a kind of all-occasion thing. It's one of those wonderful things that's either a private consumable or a gift that you give somebody. What is the magic? I mean, you've had time now to talk to the customers downstairs. I'm sure you ate chocolate before you took over the company. Can you define what is the magic in chocolate?
Well, there are a number of aspects to that. Its tradition was that it enhanced the sexual prowess of people like Montezuma, and he was known when he entered his harem to have taken 4 or 5 cups of chocolate before he went in.
And hence not a bad tie-in with Valentine's Day.
Well, it is that tradition, yes. It's also has some chemicals in it that provide a satisfaction that much like coffee does too. That it makes us feel more comfortable, and so it is, and in fact, to some degree, a satisfying type of chemical mix. So that we have that side of it. It had the tradition of being something fine and always done with a character that made it attractive and given in a way that was special. So and it's also known that something like 60% of the consumers of chocolate are women. So it's a gift that women like particularly, and so men soon learn that they can give it and are charmed by the gift.
We are the guests of Jack Doty at the Hooper's Chocolate Company. We're here for 2 reasons. First of all, chocolates is a fun product. And secondarily, Hooper's has the feeling that it wants to go nationwide, so we're kind of getting in on the ground floor of what may be a David and Goliath struggle in the chocolate industry. Jack took us from his office down into the area where they make chocolates and put them in beautiful boxes, and as I looked at one box of chocolates, I noticed that they all had a little different swiggle on top of them. I asked him whether or not there is consistency in the nomenclature, if you will, and whether or not a person who knows chocolates can make sense out of all of those swiggles to know what's inside.
The marking very definitely does mean something. It identifies the product in bulk before it goes into the finished packaging. Yes, there is a standard in the industry. However, we found here at Hooper's that standard was not adhered to. They had the Hooper's way. We are now, we do provide a map up on the wall when they mark it the right way.
Well, let's look at this sampler you have here. There are all kinds of different various kinds. Now, here's something I'm picking up that is not enrobed in chocolate. By the way, I learned that word at an ice cream company. It's kind of a nougat with exposed, what are these, walnuts?
That's pecans. That's a pecan nut roll. That's the only product that does not currently have imported Belgian chocolate in it. Everything yet made at Hooper's is handmade from imported Belgian chocolate, with the exception of that one item. That's because I particularly like that item. We dropped several that I didn't. That one will be enrobed. We're currently designing a new package for it, and it will be enrobed into a log appearance, so it'll look much like a Yule log from a bakery. We think that'll be a nice item.
I'm going to have to talk with my mouth full, though. You'll have to pardon me for that. How many different varieties of chocolate products does Hooper's make, and how does that fit you in with other confectioners?
We manufacture slightly more than 50 different products. That's 26 different flavorings, and that's in light and dark generally. Light being your semi-sweet and dark being your milk chocolate. Light being your milk chocolate.
Now, you are representative of a company, as you mentioned, which does not make chocolate, but imports it from Europe, then puts the fillings in. I would think then that from your standpoint, the real magic of what you do is obviously not only buying the best chocolate, but figuring out what to put inside of it. Was Mr. Hooper largely instrumental in designing a lot of your fillings?
Gordon Hooper actually taught the class, in fact, founded the Retail Confectioners International Candy Institute. The filling, Dennis, of a confection is called the candy. And so the Candy Institute was where he taught how to do the recipes for the different flavors nationally. So a lot of the recipes you're seeing from our competitors in different states are actually designed by Mr. Hooper. He was kind of the legend in the candy manufacturing side.
What are the biggest sellers? The top 5, for example. What's not just at Valentine's Day, for example, but on a full year basis? What are the hot sellers in chocolate right now?
I'd like to back up to something you said earlier, Dennis, if I might.
Okay.
You mentioned that there are really 2 markets. There's several markets for confections like this. One of them is the gift market. And what had happened to the candy industry it had moved in the packaged candy pretty much to gift only. What that means is that you might get a fine chocolate and give it to your wife or your mother or your mother-in-law at a holiday. But otherwise, you would go to a confectioner, much like we have downstairs, and buy candy for your own use. If you weren't close to a shopping center or a downtown which had a Hooper's or some of the other brands where they actually sold it across the counter individually, you could not buy a small package of it for your own use. What is unusual about Hooper's now is we are focusing on that market, the self-consumption market of a smaller package. So we are now in a 2 and a 4 ounce package now.
What do we have here? Packages that would just hold a couple 2 ounces, 4 ounces?
The smaller package is a 2 ounce, which holds 4 candies, and then the other is an 8 ounce, which holds 16. What that does is give, and I'm sorry on that. That's 4 ounces holding 8. There's also an 8 ounce.
I wondered about your math there for a second.
It goes quickly. There is also an 8 ounce, which is a small gift box. Comparing us to Godiva, then, who has some 250 stores nationally, you would go to a Godiva and be able to have it packaged individually the way you want it. You can do that at our showroom downstairs here. But we do not wish to open showrooms. We do not wish to go in direct competition with Godiva or See's who do that. Instead, we are selling our candy through wholesale outlets, which would then give the high quality, but in the small quantity that you would choose your own.
This week we're coming to you from Hooper's Chocolates, and as you know, this program is live on tape. What we're doing is actually recording the program on Valentine's Day and playing it back a couple of weeks later. That's why the showroom here at Hooper's Chocolates is just overflowing with people who are buying all kinds of wonderful chocolate products. Our host is Jack Doty. He is in charge of operations here at Hooper's, and we've been talking about something that they want very much to do, maybe a kind of David and Goliath story. Right now, you can go to an exclusive chocolate store in a mall and buy some very expensive premium chocolates, or you can buy what are called drugstore chocolates. But Hooper's wants to make small quantities of their very, very wonderful chocolates available in drugstores and other places, so you can have the best of both worlds. I asked Jack about that concept and how the company's going to carry it off.
And we will do it through, quote, drugstores, but it will not be a drugstore brand. And I think the difference is important. A drugstore brand has preservatives in it. The idea is that it has a long shelf life, where ours, being a premium, has a shorter shelf life. In order for us to handle that, we then support that with direct store delivery. It is our own employees that go into those stores and place it on the shelves and make sure that the freshness is maintained.
Where is chocolate going right now? I guess inherent in that is the thought that, maybe I'm reading something into this, but with the big health kick we got into a couple of decades ago, no fats, no sugars, this kind of thing, was there a downturn? I mean, I'm seeing now more sugar-free chocolates, more of that kind of thing, but were you impacted with the chocolate industry at all by the health craze that's still continuing?
Interestingly, we are, but positively. In a lot of our marketing is headed that direction. The idea is that each of us need an indulgence. We can indulge in things that are bad for us. We can indulge in things that are good for us. By buying a smaller quantity of a premium product, you're going to get that small indulgence, but you're not going to pick up the calories or the problems with smoking cigarettes or the smoking cigars or the smoking or drinking of alcohol that might also be tied into it. So chocolate then is a relatively benign but satisfying small indulgence. We promote it that way.
You know, there's a great parallel to that. A couple of years ago, I did a show just down the road from here at Edie's and Dreyer's Ice Cream, and there's a wonderful, personable fellow. I mentioned him to you before we went on the air, John Harrison, whom you have got to meet sometime. And we were talking about premium ice creams. And he said exactly the same thing. He said, you can take $5 and go out and buy 5 half gallons of 99-cent ice cream and eat till you're sick. or you can buy one package of a premium ice cream, far fewer calories, far higher quality, and have a bigger smile on your face and less burping when it's over than if you gorge yourself on an inferior product.
It's exactly the idea. And so our packaging size, I earlier made a mistake on the sizing as we teased each other, but where a gift box is a 16-ounce box, now we are talking about an 8-ounce gift box. Even then, when you care for someone, your wife, who may not wish to eat too much, you're buying a smaller quantity but of a higher quality. And so the recognition of your affection is there, but you're also not leading her astray into too many calories.
One final thing during this part of our discussion, what about chocolates and meals? I mean, I've seen mints, for example, or a chocolate Andes mint, for example, that's given at some restaurants after you're finished eating. Are there chocolates that are by their very nature dessert chocolates that are served with meals? Is there a tradition of that at all? Or are we talking about usually something that's consumed apart from a meal?
Both. Yes, there are hostess lines, is what it's called. The hostess side of it would be the mint lines, the unusual flavors, and they're sold in a different packaging type. A gift box is designed for personal consumption by the recipient. The small size is designed for personal consumption by the purchaser, and then your hostess line is part of a dinner party. So we have in the Hooper's line, we have a thin mint line that works. It's a palate cleanser and something sweet.
After showing us his office and some of the chocolates that were being packed in beautiful, beautiful hearts, Jack Doty took us down into the area where all of the merchandising takes place, where the major packing, and eventually where all the chocolate confections are made. I mentioned to him that there was so much packing material we had to walk around, he really should call that part of the plant Cardboard Box City.
It is. We are just receiving in our packing from the warehouse, getting ready to get it put away. So there's a lot here right now.
Now, if the plant were going at this point, it would be... Is it a noisy operation to make chocolate?
No, it isn't. The only place where there's a large concentration of people is in the packing tables. And we'll walk to that next year, Dennis. I'll be able to show you how that is.
Well, I'll tell you, I shouldn't say make chocolate. I should mention again that your company imports the chocolate, and that your big thing is the fillings. You produce the product with the raw materials.
It's the finishing of the product. In fact, you were right when you said chocolates. Chocolate is one thing, and then the chocolates are the consumable. So the chocolate comes in and gets converted to a chocolates.
Well, even though we're recording this on a weekend, you have one fellow back here who's working hard.
He's working hard. This is Wardnell, who is our shipping manager. Getting things. Well, he's trying to put away all this stuff, I think is what he's trying to do.
Now, you've had some bad weather here. Is it causing you a problem with the trucks, or you just keep going?
Just keep going.
You know, I was telling Jack, I just moved here from the East Coast, and everybody's making a big deal about the rain, and I'm used to it.
You have more than just in the winter, I think, Dennis.
Now, are these different labels? You have one box that says dark, or is this a sorting area?
What you have is the packing area here. If I can give you just a little bit of a history. These flow-through racks behind are where the finished bulk product comes off of the enrober. Comes here, goes onto the rack here. During the week, you'll have 12 women, 6 on each side, working, taking out of these transfer cases and putting them into the finished boxes. This is a conveyor belt. It goes down to the end. From there, it goes into the cellar wraps and then goes into the packing cases.
This reminds me of a trip I made to the Crayola Crayon Factory in eastern Pennsylvania, where they have big buckets of yellow and green and blue, but there are people who actually still have to take one green, one yellow, one blue, and make the boxes.
We thought that we were primitive. It's good to hear that Crayola is as well.
No, they're still doing it that way. So it's still a hands-on, maybe in this modern day and age, gloves-on, a kind of thing with actual people standing here and taking one of these and one of those.
One of the cheapest things you can buy right now in the candy industry is automatic packers. Nobody has ever been able to figure out a way to do that efficiently. So it's still hand-packed.
Now, you run your production line on a Monday through Friday basis?
That's correct. Currently, we're one shift. We hope to be at 2 shifts in about June or July.
How does a company such as yours here in the San Francisco Bay Area go about branching out, do you show your product at trade shows? In other words, I would think the prospect of making your product more widely available, which you want to, is exciting for you as an entrepreneur, but yet a little daunting in a way with all the competition out there.
There isn't a lot of competition for premium chocolate.
So the perception is that you have to convince the audience that.
It's simply a sales transaction, but once it occurs, then we have had no problem for acceptance.
The showroom is packed here at Hooper's Chocolates in downtown Oakland, California, a little company that has a big reputation in the Bay Area, but big plans of going national in the next couple of years. So let's keep our eye on this company. It may be kind of a David and Goliath story. Jack Doty is the head of operations, the CEO, the great big chocolatier, if you will. We are going through the area where the boxes of chocolates are filled, and I pointed out to him that there was a template, if you will, a roadmap that showed all the employees exactly which piece of chocolate went where in their multi-packs.
That's correct. One of the problems in opening up a box of chocolates is you don't know what you're going to eat. Hooper's now has returned back to having a map. We call it a map. It goes on the top of the pack, so you can go in and know if you like dark chocolate creams, you're not going to get a walnut nut.
Well, there is nothing more disappointing than biting into something that you think is going to be a caramel, and it's an orange coffee.
Isn't that terrible?
No, it just
yes.
ruins your whole day.
Yes.
Well, on behalf of those of us who get confused easily, thank you for putting this map in there.
You're very much welcome.
Jack, where do you want to go next?
I think next we'll take you into the kitchen. The kitchen is where we make the candy, as I mentioned earlier, Dennis.
That's the filling.
That's the filling. This is run by Alfredo, who is our chef.
To get through, what do you call it? Vertical pieces of plastic. It's kind of a see-through door. I presume you have a temperature you have to maintain.
It in fact is a temperature control. Yeah. That's right. Keeps it cool in here.
You were saying you have a chef, Alfredo, who's actually Mr. Filling.
That's right, Mr. Filling. He runs the kitchen, which is where the filling itself is put together. He starts here with the raw materials coming in as fresh cream and the fresh sugars and the fresh flavorings coming in this direction get mixed together in these mixers, come around and go into the cookers. The cookers then come off onto the cold tables, and the cold tables then set the fillings, getting ready for the extruder.
Why do I smell chocolate in here?
This is a chocolate factory.
You mentioned the cool table. I had first seen one of these at a fudge factory in Kansas City. I guess the products would be almost impossible to work with if you couldn't cool them down.
That's right. These have water running through them, and normally they're used as a cool table. They also have the ability to be reversed to become a hot table if you want to keep something more liquid.
Do some chocolate products have what amounts to paraffin in them?
I made the mistake at the last convention of saying something about that and had 3 chocolate producers climb all over me, Dennis. They do not use paraffin. Apparently, it's never been used, but some of the high-end manufacturers represent the lower guys do. They, in fact, do not.
I was always... Now, see, I don't know where I heard that. I was told that in order to make candy bars congeal, as it were, to be stiff enough to be packaged, you had to put something like that in there. Isn't that a wonderful old wives' tale?
It's a wives' tale. I got that. It was made very clear by some very important chocolate manufacturers.
Well, I'm glad someone else got caught on it first. I would tell people these are some of the biggest mixing bowls I think I've ever seen.
You'll notice they're also copper. That allows them to mix without sticking, and they're quite valuable. These are part of the things that we bought when we bought the company.
Yeah, some of these look as if they go back a while, but they still work.
They work. Many of them have been here since the Hoopers bought the plant back in 1951.
Let's see, and here you have, what are these, molds up here? They look like little, a cross between an ice cube tray and something that you might make little individual cakes in.
Indeed, they are the extruder knives. When the candy or the filling comes out of the kitchen, it then goes to the extruder. This shapes it when it goes onto the enrobing conveyor belt.
Okay, let me try to get this pictured in my mind. Obviously, the shape of the finished chocolate is going to be determined by the shape of what's inside, because it's simply an enrobing, as you say, a covering of chocolate, unless it's a solid chocolate.
That's correct. And even then, it's molded rather than extruded, but it's still set in the shape. So the knife then cuts it into the shape on the extruder you're seeing here, Dennis. Mm-hmm. It comes off the extruder and goes then onto the bottomer, which I always thought was an interesting name. The bottomer is here. It goes across this wire conveyor belt, sets the bottom, then goes onto another cold table, which then firms that bottom up before it goes into the enrober you're seeing here. The enrober is basically a waterfall of chocolate.
Gets recycled, obviously.
Recycled. At the back end of it, it has a blower, which then governs the amount of chocolate that goes on an individual piece.
I hate to ask this, but do you ever have something go wrong and someone shouts, "Darn"?
And not in this plant.
It's not quite as complicated as a newspaper plant. I've never been in a newspaper where the press messes up. But they tell me if the paper ever rips when a press is running at high speed, a lot of people are shouting "Darn."
Darn, yes. Here, this equipment has been here for some time, and so you'll find that our mechanic, who is full-time with us, does shout "darn" once in a while.
But can fix it in his sleep.
He does indeed.
You know what I'd like to do? Do we have anything else to see, or can we go to the showroom, or can we go through this way?
We could show take you into the decorating room, which is the other side of it. By the way, when the story of Willy Wonka, the young man went up to this pipe here from the melter over to the enrober.
Oh, I see. Okay, there we go. Wasn't his name Gloop?
I think it was Gloop.
Augustus Gloop, I think. That's a wonderful movie. Is that one of your favorite movies?
It's quite a story. This is the tail-off area of the enrober. This is where, in the other movies you've seen, where Lucille Ball would be trying to not allow the chocolate to fall off the end. We are really crowded back here. A lot of equipment has come in. Goodness.
Well, now just imagine if we had a TV crew trying to get back through here. We'd never make it. Jack, let me go ahead of you here and get through some of this. I'll tell you something. If and when you are able to carry out your dreams of expanding your distribution, you may have to add on to the plant.
Indeed, and we have those plans working now. It would not be added on a horizontal basis, however. Dennis, we'll go up. We'll handle our chocolate processing by coming in above the plant.
Now, this is obviously the decorating area. I see all kinds of tips, which tells me that, again, this is a real person putting the writing on these and not a machine.
Indeed. Maria runs the decorating room. Normally, she's able to do it by herself. It's seasonal, and we're going into Easter now. You see that we have Easter bunnies and hats and those sorts of things, which are different samples being proven by the sales department.
Oh, get me out of here.
Isn't this great?
Oh, let's look at, let me describe this. This is a complete three-dimensional bunny standing in the grass, holding a decorated Easter egg. It's probably about 10 inches tall. Lot of goodies in there.
A lot of goodies in there. He's 10 ounces of solid chocolate. In this case, he's dark chocolate, so he's going to be. This is actually designed in our marketing side for the children to give to Daddy. This would be the Daddy product. The others you're seeing are going to be milk chocolate, and those are more for the children.
We are on the road at Hooper's Chocolates in Oakland, California, and our host is the man in charge here, Jack Doty. He's been showing us all around in this wonderful, wonderful building that looks like something that Walt Disney would put together. Jack says that Hooper's took it over about 40 years ago.
That's correct. It was originally built by the Margaret Burnham Company, which was sold to another major national, and they didn't need this plant. So the Hooper family then picked it up at that time.
Okay.
We're now going, Dennis, through the store manager's office into the retail store here.
And this is pink also.
Hooper's color is pink. Mrs. Hooper liked pink, so most things are pink here. And this being Valentine's Day, there are a lot of late shoppers here, I see, picking up some of the Hooper's hearts.
Well, you know, wives had a lot to do with influencing things. I interviewed Della Reese 3 months ago, and she said that in her heyday as a singer, she was on the Ed Sullivan Show 17 times. Not because she was a good singer, but because Mrs. Sullivan, her favorite song was the Della Reese hit, and she kept saying, "Eddie, would you have Della Reese back on the show?"
Indeed.
Well, let's go over here if we can and look at some of the products. I'm sure that as we tape this on St. Valentine's Day, there are thousands of other chocolate companies offering pretty basically the same thing. Do you sell many hearts at times other than Valentine's Day?
The hearts you're looking at here are brought out only as a seasonal. We have a seasonal, we call this a pop. It's a molded on stick that comes out for each season. So there'll be a a Halloween pop, and there will be a Christmas pop.
Now, we saw that huge 2-foot wide $99 heart back in the shop. This is the more conventional size, kind of fits in a foot square box. What do assortments like this sell for?
Well, these are with $7.95. I think they're 8 ounces. Then we go down to $4.95 on the 4 ounces. And then over here, by the way, you asked what was that in the refrigeration unit out in the plant. There is the finished heart.
Okay, that's got the icing decoration on top. And the thing about Rocky Road is it's such an irregular shape.
Indeed.
Until it's decorated, it's hard to tell what it's going to be.
That's right.
Can we get through the crowd here? I want to ask about something here on the other side. One of the things, Jack, you were mentioning was the merchandising you plan on doing to provide people with the opportunity to buy a specific item in small quantities. Now, here you have a display. The other I walked away from, but it was kind of crowded on the other side. You will then be merchandising just several pieces in just a small quantity. If a person only wants 2 or 3 truffles.
Indeed. What happened with the candy industry, as I mentioned before, and the premium particularly, was that it became known mostly as a gift item. And now we brought this back to be a small indulgence item. These boxes you see here, Dennis, are 12 ounces. We're dropping that line. It's kind of halfway between your full 1 pound, which goes in the gift box category of buy a pound.
Well, listen, if you want to get rid of these hundreds of boxes or so, I'll be happy to be your wastebasket.
We'll send them down to the station. Yeah.
Well, Jack, I wish you good luck. I thank you for inviting us up here to the Bay Area. I think everybody loves chocolates. You've got a fun story to tell, and for kind of filling in a lot of the gaps. A lot of us love chocolate, but I'm not sure many of us know where it comes from.
It comes right here from Hooper's in Oakland, California.
Thanks, Jack.
All right, Dennis.
What a great, fun interview done on St. Valentine's Day, 1997, at Hooper's Chocolates, a little company, David and Goliath style, with some really big plans to take its premium chocolates national. But within 6 years of this interview, Hooper's was no more. I'm Dennis Daly.